Tisa Ho, welcome to Harbin, China. Welcome to the 5th Schoenfeld International String Competition.
It's a great pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And is this your first time in Harbin?
No, it's actually my second, but the first was over 10 years ago. So many differences, so much has changed.
So what do you find, what have you found attractive about the city itself, having visited here?
I think the people, I think they're wonderfully hospitable and warm, and everywhere I've gone, everywhere I've been, it's been welcome and how can I help you? And if I express the slightest wish, I'm learning to be careful about that, because if I express the slightest wish, they will go through loads of trouble to make that happen.
So now we're here with the Schoenfeld competition, and you've got to see some of the facilities here, from the concert hall to this conservatory and probably some other things. So talk a little bit about your impressions of the arts buildings, the arts facilities, the arts culture here.
The infrastructure when I was here the last time, over 10 years ago, there was the old concert hall, which is great for music making, but what you have now in Harbin is so impressive. I mean, the first thing that strikes me, coming from a very congested city, is the sense of scale. There's such space, there's such a feeling of elbow room, and sometimes it takes a bit longer to walk from A to B because there's a space to cover. And I love also the consistency of the identity. It's snowflakes, it's ice, it's white, it's everywhere, and you cannot mistake that this is Harbin. This is where it is.
Yeah. So now with the Schoenfeld competition, give us your impressions of the actual competition itself this past week, and its kind of marriage with Harbin, the city itself.
Well, I've been listening only to the cello, and for those young people, the standards are so high, and also in a sort of band. They're all consistently high. There isn't somebody who falls below a certain level, and so in a way, it's difficult for them as well to distinguish, to differentiate themselves, because they're all within a very high quality band of young people. And I think they've been having a whale of a time in Harbin as well, because the history of the city, the awareness of the musical history of the city, of who was here, and how important is the city, how important music is to the city, and how the heritage and the lineage of the musical life of the city. I think this must, I imagine, it must inform and inspire them.
So I want to go back in time a little bit to your own journey with the arts. I know you're based in Hong Kong, and you had the Hong Kong Arts Festival, but talk a little bit about getting to that point and your musical life.
It feels very random. I have always loved the arts. I love music. And I worked, before the festival, I spent 9 years managing the Singapore Symphony and Concert Hall. So it was an enormous privilege to hear the orchestra rehearse from day one until the concert night. And sometimes before the concert night, musicians would say, Tisa, we're going to make you cry this week. And I know it's so just listening to music and being engaged, listening in and understanding a little bit. I mean, I don't have the technical expertise. I'm not a musician, but to be able to connect with what musicians are doing, that's been a huge privilege. And then moving on to the Arts Festival, where we presented music, theatre, opera, dance, circus, stuff that you couldn't kind of define because it was all new stuff happening. But music was always a big part of it. So whether ensembles, small ensembles, large ensembles, soloists, it's always a big part of what was happening, and a big part of what I enjoy and makes life meaningful and worthwhile. And ironically, when it's been a long day and I'm tired, if I go to a concert, I feel more energy afterwards than if I just go home, have supper and go to bed. So strangely, listening to these young people has been very energizing. It's you think, oh gosh, it's a long day. We're listening to all these candidates, but there's such life, there's such energy, there's such human spirit, whatever it is, coming off this. It's wonderful. I've had such a great time.
So now, having been in the arts field, you've seen and have had some connection with different competitions and know about many different competitions. How important would you say competitions are for young people and your role as an arts administrator, and maybe specifically about the Schoenfeld?
I think competitions are brutal. I think that every musician, every performer is unique unto himself, herself. And to compare is really, really difficult. But in a world which is very congested, which is very noisy, there are a lot of young people making a career. Competitions have also become so important, so critical in getting noticed, in getting your head above the parapet, if you will. And I know in some competitions, you know, the agents and the scouters and presenters are all there looking at the next crop of talent. And I know I do that too, you know, like, oh, who's coming, who's emerging in which competition, what do they sound like, and what's going on. And it's also, I guess from the other side, from a presenter's point of view, it's a good way to take a quick temperature of where young performers are these days, and what's trending and what's coming out of the training at high level, at level where you would transition then into the profession.
So now, as a jury member, now on the cello jury, and you come with a unique resume, I might say, to bring something different to the Schoenfeld competition. What is it that you look for as you're sitting there on the jury when a young cellist walks out on stage and begins to play?
I look for something that I can't define. I'm deeply conscious I don't have the technical expertise to go into the finer points of how a phrase is played, how, you know, how a fingering works, or the bowing and so on. But I think a performer that relates to the music, relates to the audience, and has something to say and to share and to give, and has something, and relates himself or herself to the music in a personal way, this will show. And I wouldn't be brave enough to define what it is, because as soon as you define it, some young person is going to break all of that, but be clearly recognizable as having something that's truly artistic, that having a unique voice or something different. So I think that's what is really exciting to see.
So for when we choose the winner in a few days' time from now, and how their career is now going to change, in your career as working in the arts, what advice would you give them now that they've won, that they have that medal around their neck? They can always put on the resume that they've won the 5th Schoenfeld competition. How would you tell them to go from here?
It's one step. It's one step in a very, very, very long journey. And I would say the same actually to the ones that don't have the medal on their necks, or medal of a different color. Competitions are important. Every step is important, but it's just one step. And the journey will continue. And I think studying, going back to the score, continuing to work, continuing to dig into the music that you like, to find what it means to you, and then to communicate that. I think that all musicians, you know, do this. It's a very long journey. This is just one step. Important step, visible step, big transitional step, but one step in a very long journey.
Well, Tisa Ho, thank you so much for joining us in Harbin and joining us for the Schoenfeld competition.
My pleasure entirely. Thank you.
Thank you.